Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session today on when nothing seems to work, what to do with chronic misbehavior. I don't know if you've noticed, but all these sessions that we've been having in this series are really geared towards helping teachers cope with tiredness, exhaustion, and even possibly burnout. And one of those things that really makes teachers very tired is having to do with chronic misbehavior of students. Well, there are really many ways of being able to manage a class without ever having to resort to shouting, screaming, and yelling. And in fact, I would like to suggest to you, if you have not been able to attend that session that is one of the most in-demand sessions of Catalyst for professional development services. You can go to the YouTube channel. The name of the channel is Mann Rentoy, or also you can reach it by typing in the search bar of YouTube at Catalyst Formation. Sorry, at Character Formation. If you actually type that in the search bar of YouTube, you will chance upon the channel where I uploaded more than 200 webinars. One of them is about um, how to manage a class effectively. And many times it is entitled as Once and for All, You Can Solve That Discipline Problem. And the session is based on principles from Dr. Harry and Rosemary Wong. The best book available on classroom management is their book entitled First Days of School. So, there I explain how to get the students to do what you want them to do without ever having to resort to shouting, screaming, and yelling. And much of it, you can also learn how to deal with misbehavior inside the classroom. And you can actually get John, Joanna, Geraldine to do what you want them to do without even having to call their names, without even having to stop teaching, without even having to get mad, get angry, get frustrated. There are those strategies that I encourage you to explore. You can, it's available once and for all. You can solve that discipline problem. And I think there are three or four versions of that in that channel because I have given that topic so many times and a number of times that it was given as a webinar, they were recorded. So if you are having a difficulty dealing with certain students, misbehaving students inside the classroom, that webinar can be very, very helpful for you. So, but today what we will talk about is when nothing seems to work. You may be trying the strategies of Harry Wong. You may have already tried the strategies of Dr. Hal Urban, of Dr. Fred Jones. You may have already tried the strategies given to you by all these gurus, and you continue to have certain problematic students. Okay? That's what we're going to talk about today. How to deal with those kinds of cases. So, our battle cry for this session is this: reset the climate, reach the child. Reset the climate, reach the child. Because in the end, this is what we are after, being able to reach out to that child who may be problematic, who may be difficult to manage because of repeated misbehavior, chronic misbehavior. Reset. When chronic misbehavior drains your energy and undermines your efforts, it's time to reset. Not just the rules, but the relationship and the environment. One of the most important points you should have already gotten from this series is unless there is a relationship, we will not be able to succeed in forming the students in discipline, disciplining, or managing the students. So that's what we are after. Reset, RESET. Each letter stands for a strategic pillar, okay, of intervention and restoration. So let's go to the letter R. Letter R stands for, if you have these kinds of students, no matter how many times you repeat, sit up straight, stop talking, keep quiet, eyes on the board, look here. And then you have to repeat it so many times in different tones, angry, very angry, most angry, and yet they continue, they persist. So let's go to the first letter of reset, reassess the root causes. At the root of every misbehavior, there is something there that is being sent to us as a message. Let's look at the root causes, because many times we may be barking up the wrong tree. We may be um, getting angry, getting upset, shouting at, screaming at, yelling at that external behavior, but that is just a an external manifestation of something deeper, something else. That's what we will have to reassess. Where is this coming from? Why is this student repeatedly trying to annoy me? In fact, that is how ineffective teachers many times react. They shout at the student saying, "Are you challenging my authority?" Yeah. Because they think that the continued, the repeated misbehavior of a student is his way of challenging the teacher's authority. Not necessarily. In fact, many times, no, there may be other causes that's bringing it about. And please, teachers, we should never resort to a line like that, reprimand like that. Are you challenging my authority? I mean, it um, shows that we are insecure about our position, about the our hold on the students, on the control or in our ability to manage the students. So then, here is a very important point. Misbehavior is often a message, okay? And we have to try to find out the root cause, meaning to say, we have to try to find out what is the student trying to say by doing this, by not obeying what I'm saying. Here are top 5 things to assess. Okay. And the top 5 things to reassess actually means the possible root causes of misbehavior, of repeated chronic misbehavior. Here's the first one. It may be because of unmet needs. That's the way the student is trying to catch your attention. Maybe he is hungry, he is tired, he is lonely, or even overstimulated, or maybe he is grappling with a very serious problem at home. And 30 years inside the classrooms, I've seen this so many times. A student misbehaving, I would eventually find out, it's because there is problem in the house. The parents are fighting. The parents are about to break up, or the father left the house. And the student really is grappling with so many questions in his mind. The last thing in his mind is your math subject, your science subject, your English subject. On top of his mind are questions like, why did dad leave us? Is it my fault? Did I do anything wrong? Is it because my mom um, does not love me also anymore. I mean, those are the things that are going on in his mind. And that chronic misbehavior may be his way of signaling to you, I am here in the dark. I need help. Somebody please talk to me. Please send me to the guidance office. Unmet needs. Here's another possible root cause, which we will have to reassess. Maybe the student really is having a tough time skill wise. Maybe he does not have the emotional regulation or the social skills or the academic ability. And that misbehavior is his way of asking for attention, asking for help. Not all students are mature enough to actually go to you quietly, peacefully, and to say, Ma'am, I don't understand the lesson. Please help me. That requires a lot of maturity, which not all students are capable of being able to have yet, especially the lower grades or even the teenagers. Teenagers think that if they ask for help is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of defect. It's a sign of being a loser. I mean, really, there are some teenagers who are even grappling with identity. So, at the root of that misbehavior, maybe is really the deficit in skills, specific skills. Um, Now, I'm sure you also experience it in your schools. You see it also. Me, after having been inside the classroom for more than 30 years, I saw how it progressively increased. We have more and more students coming inside our classroom, and many of them have special needs or um, with additional needs. Maybe some of them even actually need professional help. We now have more cases of ADD, ADHD, OC, OD. I was surprised to hear about the OD, ODD, the as a student who is not able to deal with authority. The, the deficit of the student in being able to deal with any kind of authority, authority of the parents, authority of the teachers, and so they don't know how to behave properly. Here's another possible root cause that we can also look at. There may be triggers inside the classroom bringing about the chronic misbehavior. You take a look at the classroom. Is it overstimulating? Is it chaotic? Is it inconsistent? I mean, some students, um, like, they get lost when things are not according to the their expectations. Okay, we can say square. They are square. They want everything to be according to how they expect it to be. A sort of obsessive compulsive kind of mindset, no? That if the ball pen is not in its proper place, they feel uneasy. If the frame, I mean, hear this, if the frame inside the classroom is tilted, it's not in perfect position, they feel uneasy. There are people who are like that. Is it psychological? Maybe. Yeah, I think so. But there are people who are like that. The rows are not aligned, they feel uneasy. They feel something is wrong. And that is a trigger for them to misbehave, to repeatedly do things they are not supposed to do. Here's a fourth, cultural and family context. Well, the unmet needs, more or less touched on it a bit, no, earlier. But we can look at home stressors. Maybe in the house, they are grappling with sibling rivalry. It is a reality. There is such a thing. Or the middle child syndrome. Are you familiar with the middle child syndrome? That the middle child may have the tendency to be insecure because they feel they are ignored, because the eldest, they are showered with a lot of affection, and uh, they are given a lot of responsibilities and expectations. The youngest, on the other hand, oh, it's the bunso of the family. The youngest in the family is like the spoiled kid at home, showered with a lot of affection and attention. And then you have the middle child here, feeling like, comparing to the eldest and to the youngest, they feel they lack attention. There are home stressors like that. And that's a reality. Or cultural stressors, or cultural context. The cultural classes. Be on the lookout for students, for example, who are transferees, who moved from another city, and they are new students in your school. They need more support than an average student, because not only would they have to grapple with a new class, a new community, they have to grapple with a new, maybe even a new language, because they come from another country or another city with a different dialect that they feel more at home in. All these can contribute to chronic misbehavior. And then finally, number five, be very much on the lookout for your reaction. Because sometimes you have teachers who are like that. They think they have very high standards as far as discipline is concerned. So, a student looking outside the window, the teacher, the terror teacher, will get angry, will get mad, and will say, "Are you daydreaming? Eyes here on the board. Stop being distracted." No, no, he's not daydreaming. He's not distracted. They're just suddenly a bird that appeared, a unique bird that appeared on the window, or that they just happen to be looking at the skies, checking if it's going to rain, because they didn't get to bring an umbrella, and now they begin to be worried about that dismissal. But the response of the teacher, of being angry, upset, and judging him right away for being distracted, or maybe even daydreaming, I mean, all these could escalate the behavior unintentionally. And to think that this teacher thinks or feels that he or she has high standards, that's the letter R. We have to reassess the root causes, because there may be different reasons why this or that student is behaving that way. Let's go to letter E. E stands for establishing predictable routines. And this is where the seminar, webinar, I encourage you to watch. If you have not attended that session yet, once and for all, you can solve that discipline problem. Better Classroom Management by Harry and Rosemary Wong is precisely all about establishing predictable routines, procedures, and routines. Teach students procedures, rehearse them over and over and over again until they become routines. Okay? So, the students who know your procedure for reciting, they will follow it if they know it, and if they have rehearsed it with them, if you have rehearsed it with them, and that they have become a routine. How to fall in line, how to arrange the desk, how to start and end the class, how to transfer from one classroom to another, how to go from the classroom to the cafeteria. All these should be established procedures that you do over and over. They have become routine because chaos breeds misbehavior. On the other hand, predictability builds safety. Students become chaotic when they actually don't know what you expect them to do. They think it's okay to move around, to transfer from one seat to another. If you did not make that procedure very clear, that when you start the class, you expect them to stay in their assigned seats. If a student comes late, what is your procedure? Do you want him or her to go to the office to ask for a late slip? Or do you allow that person to sit? What is your procedure? If he knows, then he will do it. And if you especially rehearse it. Another example is passing in of papers. If you did not teach clearly the procedure to the students, how to pass papers, how to turn in papers. For example, at the end of every exam, you are going to say, okay, class, time's up. Please pass the papers. Did you teach the procedure and did you rehearse it in a way that they know exactly how to pass the papers forward? If you did not, then you will have some students standing up to give you their paper and you get angry. Sit down, pass the papers to your. Do they pass it forward? Do they pass it to the aisle? If you did not establish the procedure, the class becomes chaotic. And worse, you're going to waste time. It's already been 20 seconds, you have not gotten all the papers yet. Just to give you an example of what you can find in that webinar on Once and For All, you can solve that discipline problem. I teach there the procedure of Harry Wong for turning in papers, which is something like this. Okay, class, time's up. Put your pens down. This is after an exam or after a test or after an exercise, and you want to collect the papers. Okay, class, time's up. At the count of five, all papers to the aisles. There. That's an example of a predictability, routine. And you rehearsed it over and over that the students exactly know. And you value time. That's why you will say something like, at the count of five, all papers to the aisles. Five, four, three. That's predictable. That's routine. And that makes the class less chaotic or not at all chaotic, but orderly. Okay? So here are top three routine reset strategies. Number one, visual schedules. Post a simple, clear routine that students can rely on. They see it, how to start the class, how to end the class, how to submit papers. Have it there, posted in the bulletin board or in a poster on the walls of the classroom. Number two, consistent transitions. Making use of signals. Some teachers, for example, their transition after taking an exam, the teacher wants them to go back to their respective places because some teachers, for example, when they do tests, they ask the students to spread the chairs, no, so that they are not too close to each other, that it's very easy to copy from the classmate. It's easy to cheat. So some teachers would ask the students to spread out the chairs. And then after the exam, the teacher wants them to all return the chairs to their proper order or to the original position. So they use music. They play a music. Okay, class, at the end of this 30-second music, I expect all chairs to be in their respective original positions. Or countdowns. Okay, at the count of 10, please make sure you are back to your original position. 10, 9, 8, etc. Or simply routines. Those are consistent transitions that will enable you to reset, reset the environment, reset the classroom, reset everything. Or behavior rituals. That's the third routine reset strategy. Behavior results. For example, the daily greetings. Many teachers, especially in the lower grades, do this. No? When they ask good morning or they say good morning, they expect the students to reply with good morning, Miss So and so, good morning, teacher. Or another behavior ritual is check ins. Okay, class, how are you today? Get the emoji sticker and raise it, or get one of the three colors that we have: red, green, yellow. Red is sluggish, green is all excited to go, yellow is no, nothing in particular. Okay, how are you right now? Raise the color of your state condition right now, like that. Or as they enter the classroom, those posters that show their smiley, sad face, angry, frustrated, excited. And then you will tell the students to point out which among those emojis, those pictures represent their um, present situation or feelings at that moment. Behavior rituals, that is a way of resetting. And then when you know how they are doing at that moment, you run the class accordingly. If, for example, majority of the students point to angry, well, maybe talking about factoring or subtraction and multiplication may not be the best time at that moment. You might need to do a bit of processing. What is happening? How are things? Why is everybody feeling like that? As a way of resetting, don't get into your lessons right away, because it's very difficult to be teaching an angry class. And that anger may be just rooted in, I don't know, they lost a game, they lost in the intrams just before coming to your class. And that might need a bit of resetting before you get into your lessons for the day. Let's go to letter S, reset. Letter S stands for set clear boundaries with empathy. Sure, we will set clear boundaries, but at the same time, we have to realize that, well, the life of students, the life of the young people today can be very complicated. I mean, they are grappling with many things which many of us, older teachers, did not have to contend with many years ago when we were students. I mean, in the first place, we did not have to deal with addiction to computer games, addiction to TikTok, social media, Facebook, Instagram. We didn't have that. Students today are grappling with all sorts of addiction to the YouTube videos, social media. There is a overstimulation of the senses because of Spotify, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, all these which did not exist when we were younger. So that is part of empathy. We have to feel, I mean, we have to at least try to know how they are coping with all these challenges. Clarity with kindness is not a contradiction, it's a superpower. Okay? Be very clear in your rules, be very clear in your procedures, be very clear in your expectations, but at the same time, know that these kids are maybe going through um, far more than we ever can imagine we did when we were younger. Here are top five do's and don'ts. Do state rules positively. For example, we walk to keep everyone safe. No running. That's a negative already. We do not. We walk properly along the corridor because we don't want to disturb classes. That's a positive doing. We show respect to the ladies in the cafeteria because they are serving us. They're doing their best to serve us. Don't use sarcasm or public shaming. Do use when, then, phrasing for accountability. When you do this, then this happens. When you disrespect a person, then you have the obligation to apologize. When you put things that way, they realize anything they do has a consequence. Everything they do would have a consequence, and they have to account for it. They have to be responsible for it and have to be held accountable for it. Do not issue threats that you can enforce. Class, if you do not behave, I'm going to suspend you all. You cannot enforce that really. And that threat is just going to be laughable, and they mm, are just going to be full of resentments. On the other hand, what we will do is to say, class, we will behave in the best possible way because I expect the best from you, because you're carrying the name of the class, because you are more mature than that. That's expectation. That's a positive thing. Do anchor rules to core values. Okay, class, I expect you to be um, most responsible. You will not cram for the exam. You will study starting tonight, not the night before the exam next week, but starting now, you will prepare for the test. You will study hard because I expect you to not even think about cheating. After all, that's one of the core values of our school: honesty, truth, sincerity. You keep on going back to what we stand for as a school. Okay? These are top five do's and don'ts. Let's go to the second E. Remember, we're going to through reset um, in order to deal with chronic misbehavior. Engage the student in repair. That student who is chronically misbehaving, repeatedly breaking your rules, that student needs repair. Engage with that student in order to help him or her to get fixed, quote unquote. Consequences should teach, not punish. That's why the, we have to avoid expressions like, plus, you better behave, or else. That's a threat. And it's like you're always on the lookout for somebody to punish, somebody to sanction rather than teaching, which is what we are. That's why we are called teachers. And we are the adults inside the classroom. We are expected to teach. Dr. Marvin Berkowitz was the one who said, character formation has no on or off switch. As soon as you put an adult in front of children, character formation starts happening, teaching starts taking place. Unfortunately, it is teaching for the good or for the bad. Whatever the teacher does is teaching kids. So if the teacher starts shouting, screaming, and yelling, he is teaching the students that it's okay to hurt or to harm, to disrespect. Even if you think the shouting, the screaming, the yelling is in place because John, Joanna, Geraldine have been repeatedly misbehaving, have been repeatedly breaking your classroom rules. So then, here are top five alternatives to detention only models, because that is sometimes the mindset of some teachers. No, you follow my rules or else I will have to punish you. I will have to detain you. And you repeat it, I will have to ask you to come on Saturday. You repeat it, I will have to suspend you half a day. It's all about punishing. Here are top five alternatives to detention only models. Number one, restorative conversations. To deal with the students, to reach out to the students, engage him, engage her, asking questions like, what happened? Tell me, who was affected by that misbehavior you did? What can you do to fix it? You're engaging the student in a conversation that will try to restore order and restore his or her um, well, feelings or state inside your classroom. Number two, make the student do reflection. There are these student think sheets that you have available in your classroom that you will tell a student, okay, you just um, have been repeatedly breaking my rules. I want you to reflect on what you have been doing. Here's a pen and paper. Write, write down the answer to the question, what happened? Why am I doing this? What is the consequence of my action? What can I do to fix it? We have to make the students reflect, introspect, do introspection, looking inside themselves, trying to determine themselves, they themselves trying to determine, why am I doing this? That's right. Why do I have to be repeatedly be corrected, or my attention has to be repeatedly called? Okay, there may be possibility of losing privileges, but at the same time, giving them the opportunity to earn it back. Okay, because of your repeated misbehavior, sorry, but you will have to stay for a few minutes to work on this reflection paper. But don't worry, as soon as you submit this paper to me, you will be able to get back the privilege. You will have the opportunity to go to your recess, to your break. Make him or her lose a certain privilege, but at the same time, with a possibility of still being able to get back that lost privilege. Here's another one, classroom jobs for repair. Let the student contribute positively. Again, inside the classroom. John, I have to talk to you because I repeatedly told you not to tease your classmate, not to bully your seatmate, but you repeatedly did it. I want you to contribute in a positive way to the classroom setting, to the classroom environment. Um, what can you do to make up for that offense that you repeatedly committed. Giving them a task, an assignment, a job that will enable them to, well, sort of fix up what they messed, fix up what they somehow put in this repair. And the number five, peer mediation or adult mentorship programs. I know it's not very easy for many of us to have to talk to a student outside of the class. We're very busy. After every period, we just want to go back to our faculty room and rest. But if we're talking here of chronic misbehavior and what we want to straighten it, we want to fix it, then there's no other way. We will have to go out of our way to connect, engage with a student with that idea in mind that we are going to repair. Okay? So that's another possibility we can do. Now we go to the last T, I mean, the last letter of reset. And this is T for teach self regulation and co regulate. The certificate that you received from this seminar has the logo of Center for the Fourth and Fifth R's of Dr. Thomas Licona, based in the State University of New York in Cortland, USA. The fourth and fifth R's stand for respect and responsibility. That is character. When they do the good thing, even when no one is looking, that's self regulation. Even if others are not, and even if it is difficult, that is sense of responsibility. Students cannot be expected to control their behavior if we don't teach them how. That's why it's important that we do teach them how to control themselves. We have to teach self regulation and co regulate. So, here are five tools to teach regulation. In your classroom, have a calm corner or corners, spaces, places that you can send the student to, and there are stress balls, breathing visuals, etc. Those um, things, materials that can help them calm themselves down. Remember, we are dealing with chronic misbehavior here, and we are trying to see what can we do if we already have these kinds of students and this kind of situations. Get them to go to the calm corner that will enable them to calm down, reset, and then join again the class once they think they are ready to get back to regular programming. Mindfulness minutes, that has become like a so common, um, like a requirement for people today, being mindful. Well, what is this? Mindfulness minutes. Start the class with grounding techniques to make them be mindful of the classes going on in the other classrooms, the mindful of the feelings of the others inside the classroom, their classmates, mindfulness of how the teacher himself or herself is. Spend a few moments getting the students to be aware, to be mindful of their surroundings, of the other people, having that empathy towards other people. That's a way of teaching regulation, self regulation, and co regulate. Here's another one. Don't underestimate the power of breathing techniques, of getting them to calm down, even physically, to do their breathing. The breathing exercise of 4, 7, 8. 4 seconds to inhale, hold your breath for 7 seconds, exhale for 8 seconds. That is an exercise in mindfulness as well, of being aware of your environment, of the moment, of your breathing. All these enable young people, especially, to calm down and to regulate. Here's another one, emotion check ins. We already talked about that earlier. And it's very good to know how things are as far as their emotions are concerned. Using colors, using charts, using emojis. It's important for us now to have this mindfulness of thinking about how they are mentally, physically. We keep on talking a lot about mental health issues, students getting into depression, students um, entertaining suicidal thoughts, things like that. No? I mean, these things we didn't have to do years ago. But today, with the kind of students we have, we just cannot ignore these things. We have to be in tune with their emotions, with their feelings, with their mindsets, with their conditions at every moment. Of course, the letter M in primed modeling. They have to see the teacher modeling regulation, self regulation. The teacher should not be afraid to tell the class, okay, class, I'm a bit stressed right now because of deadlines coming up. I'm a bit overwhelmed. Let us do a little breathing exercise. That's modeling. That's teaching the students, wow, even mom, even sir, take seriously this idea of regulating, of um, being conscious of how things are as far as the emotions are concerned, the mindset, disposition is concerned. Let me tell you a story. This is entitled The Boy Under the Table. It was the first week of school. The new teacher, fresh from her training, summer training, was excited to meet the second grade class. But there's one specific student who didn't seem to share the excitement. Let's call him Carlo. Carlo, that's the name of the boy. By day three, Carlo had already flipped a chair, shouted during class, bothered the classmate, and worst of all, on Thursday, he crawled under the teacher's table and he refused to come out. Other students stared. The teacher froze and she tried coaxing him out, telling him to get out under the chair. Carlo would not. And he even, the teacher had to end up threatening Carlo. Later on, a co teacher, a seasoned teacher, came by and gently asked the teacher, do you know his story? The young teacher shook her head. She didn't know. And the colleague said, you know, Carlos' mom left 6 months ago. His dad is working two jobs to survive and to sustain the family. Carlo wakes up alone. He makes his own breakfast. He walks to school by himself and he never knows if anyone will be home at night. So, having learned the story of Carlo, the new teacher changed her strategy. The next day, Carlo went under the table and the teacher crouched down next to the table and whispered, "Hey, Carlo, I'm glad you're here. I saved a seat for you when you're ready. Want to help me pass out the crayons today? Do you want me to do you want to help me distributing these crayons that we're going to use for the class activity now?" After a few minutes, Carlo crawled out. He didn't say anything. He just sat down, and for the first time all week, he started working. He colored. He cooperated with a teacher. That's the story of Carlo, which the teacher would not have found out if she did not engage, if she did not converse, if she just shouted, screamed, and yelled at Carlo, thinking that he was challenging her authority. Well, the key message here is this: every misbehavior is a message. Our job is not just to fix the behavior, our job is to hear the message, because behind every storm is a child waiting for someone to see, to understand, and to stay. That is what we can do when nothing seems to work in the face of chronic misbehavior, repeated misbehavior. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. In a while, you're going to see the QR code flashed on screen. You can scan it, and you will also see the link in the chat box that you can click so that you can fill up the Google form to claim your certificate. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we hope to see you in our other future sessions.